Hello, everybody. This is David Jerome Putnam. I'm Glass Beat Player on X, and I'm doing a podcast called Absolute Trend Spotters. And today, my guest is
David Heckley. Grew up in Switzerland, spent some time in France, Isle of Man, working as an airline pilot. The rest of the time, I flew for Swiss Air, Swiss, Crossair, through all the turbulences we went through during the last years. Collected about 15,000 hours and landings. So I'm quite an experienced pilot.
but
Um,
now you're retired, correct?
I had to stop flying because of my health. I had
Mm-hmm.
trouble with my breathing and hence problems with keeping a steady blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I felt that I'm not reliable anymore.
Okay, this is our second podcast. We also did another podcast a couple of weeks ago about quantum physics, Tesla energy, and UFOs. This time, what's our topic?
My idea was to do a podcast on climate in general, because there are many topics that are going on right now with the hurricane season in the United
Hmm.
States and geoengineering and climate alarmism and all these topics, and they're all connected. And I think today we can get a nice grab on what's actually going on.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. So I'm really like for 10 years I saw some documentaries. What why are they no why are they spraying this shit? No, something like that. There was a famous documentary. I'll quickly look again. Where's the title here? Why in the world are they spraying? Was a very
Okay.
popular documentary about geoengineering or chemtrails. And the mass media always say, no, it's just contrails. But you will, of course, now give the. We also have to say you have been researching all this natural sciences since your childhood.
Yes, yes. I've
Hmm.
spent probably 30,000 hours in the meantime trying to figure
Okay.
out what's actually going on,
Hmm.
be it in physics, in chemistry, biology, psychology. Um,
And before you stop, please tell me where can people find you? What's your homepage?
Vortex.institute is my main website. And
Mm-hmm.
same on Twitter or on our X, Vortex Institute in one word. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's look at the weather, or more precisely, the climate, and if we as humans with our newest technology can really modify it, change it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Um, I think the core reason we have so many issues or topics are that people don't really understand the atmosphere. I think we need to go into the knowledge first, and then we can go broad and see why things can or can't be true and what's actually going on. At the moment, we have this topic with the hurricane season in North Carolina, in the United States in general. I mean, even here in Switzerland, before that, or in Germany, we had quite heavy rainfalls, which are unusual. Nobody is debating that. It's not normal. Now we have the two camps, basically. Those that claim this is climate change and humans are responsible for that. And now you see it, how terrible that is. And on the other side, we have the skeptics, which I have to say usually are the ones correct, but in this case, they're probably not. Um, the, the reason is not geoengineering or chemtrails or all these topics or HAARP.
Mm.
Um, the truth is something completely different, where both camps are just completely wrong, I have to say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Really?
As always, I mean, I'm just presenting what I've learned. My goal is just to find the objective reality, or to get as close as possible to the objective reality as we can,
Hmm.
while being very aware that even if we achieve the objective reality, we are not in a position to know that now we have achieved it, right? So I come here in actually a very humble attitude because I've changed my mind probably 76 times to come here, right?
Really?
And usually the change happens in the beginning very fast because I think, that now I know what is going on. And then it switches. Oh, no, I was wrong. Tuck, 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 tuck. And then at the end, it
Hmm.
becomes small and smaller. And then I start usually to hone in on one interpretation of the data, which makes
Yeah.
most sense to me.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, from experience, that's usually when I achieve to be very close to the objective reality. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I always keep a very open mind to if somebody presents better arguments or better data, better facts, to change again. Right.
Hmm.
Because I really just want to know the objective reality. I have no agenda.
Cool. And you mainly look at the scientific sources, the scientific papers, but not only maybe from the most the most famous universities. There are also some good independent researchers who are maybe
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. I try to get as close as possible to original sources,
Hmm.
uh, experiments, actual data, and stay away from data that has been already modified or interpreted, or
By
somebody
journalists
has
or so,
already
yeah.
pre-chewed it and presents it as his opinion.
Hmm.
Always installs already a filter. I started
Good.
my journey like about 2001 when
Mm, already.
I felt that the official narrative of 9/11 that cannot be true. It's just not physics. It
Hmm.
violates at least two of the laws of thermodynamics, and
Yeah.
that cannot be. If your theory violates any law of thermodynamics, it is just wrong.
Yeah.
That's very easy. So there I started to try to figure out what actually is going on, and yeah, that's where I come from.
Yeah, with me also, it was maybe 10 years later, around 2010 or a little bit earlier. First, the 9/11 didn't make sense, and then also the chemtrails was very a popular conspiracy theories, and I looked into it, and I'm still not sure what's really going on, but I look up into the sky a lot and see
Mm.
a lot of these white lines that that's like we see now in your background that seem to make a cover, but please explain the physics behind it.
All right, yeah, let's dive into the chemtrails. It's
Hmm.
it's one of my favorite topics to demonstrate a few things, and they're mostly psychological and not so much
Ah,
scientific.
okay.
Um, yeah, as you've seen in the background, that was a really nice day, beginning of September, 6th of September. You can look it up.
Hmm.
I had,
This year, 2024.
yes, this year.
Hmm.
So that was taken from my garden. You see,
Yeah,
um, compared to the last picture, the sky is already a bit milky, right?
yeah.
The PC-7 team from the Swiss Air Force, by the way, they're training
Hmm.
here. I thought that's really nice. I can sit in my garden and an air show, right?
Yeah.
So I'll switch back to the static version. So you see initially sky perfectly blue. Then over the next few hours, it started to look like this, and it started spreading out, right?
Hmm.
I thought, oh, that's perfect. Now I can show and demonstrate on a real life event I just experienced what was actually going on, right? By the evening of the same day, it was completely covered. The sky was completely covered.
But
And
these, would you say these are contrails?
these are definitely contrails. Yeah.
Condensation, you can say what's really in it, but it's from military planes or commercial planes.
These
Yes, no? Hmm.
are always from airliners.
Airliners.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I can tell you, as a heads up, condensation trails from air. Now, that's really difficult to follow.
Yeah,
Uh,
these.
Contrails from airliners are always contrails. They're never chemtrails.
Yeah.
It is completely insane to claim something like that. And I can explain further in detail later on if you want to know the details. But as
Hmm.
a heads up, contrails of airliners are always contrails.
But it's not just a water vapor. It's also
Yes, it is water vapor.
CO2. It's because they burn the gas, no?
Of course. I mean, the
The
exhaust.
petroleum. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you can't see the exhaust. On
Hmm.
a day with dry air, when you have blue sky,
Hmm.
there you don't see anything. And I mean, we always burn like a car. I mean, there's nothing different.
Yeah.
CO2, monoxide, and all these small particles that come out, they're there, of
Hmm.
course.
Yeah.
But that's not what you see. What you can see is always water vapor.
Yeah.
Vapor either in steam form or the ones that stay for a very long time, then they're just the frozen version, you
Yeah.
know. They can, I mean, up there it's minus 60, minus 55 degrees Celsius. So
Hmm.
water vapor very quickly freezes up there.
And then it also stays there as a white how do
Yes.
you call it? Like a white cloud, huh? White
Yeah,
streak.
it's a algostratus or cirrostratus. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's what we call them. And if they are frozen, then you see this rainbow shimmer through it
Yeah.
because they're like
They fracture the light then, huh? Like
exactly
into a
they,
rainbow. Hmm.
you see the rainbow diffraction of an ice crystal. There we go. That's what
Okay.
actually was going on, right? I was actually not on that point. I was up there.
Yeah, that's about where you live.
Yeah,
Hmm.
north of
No.
Switzerland.
Hmm.
And you see here, I put here up the 300 hectopascal pressure layer of the atmosphere on that day, because that's where the humid air came moving in. And it was just an accident that the planes flew by here and they started to create these contrails because the air got humid. So the air humidity is what changed and not the planes. The
Hmm.
planes didn't switch on the chemtrails. That
Hmm.
is better. We need to find you again. Where are you?
That's the different stratuses or stratusi or the different layers, sky levels,
I am.
layers.
I
Yeah.
probably need to explain that graph
Yeah.
first. This is called an emagram. I can
Hmm.
provide you with the link where you can find it for yourself. You just find a station that is closest to you. It's basically they let a balloon climb up with sensors attached, and that balloon is then graphing all these gradients. And the most important one is the temperature, that's the red one. And the blue one is, it's called the dew point. Dew point is where the humidity
Hmm.
in air would reach 100% relative humidity, and it cannot hold more than that water in that temperature. But important
Okay.
is dew point and temperature curve and the spread between the two, right? That's this
Hmm.
one. But it's the difference.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have a house, in the wall of the house, exactly this process takes place as well. So if you have not a good insulation, the temperature and dew point spread will reach zero, and that's where you get water in your walls.
Hmm.
So in this case,
From condensation.
condensation, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the reason. So you want to have
Okay.
a good insulation on the outside so that the spread remains always positive and you don't reach zero. Here, in that corner is where the temperature and the dew point touch, and that's exactly where the base of the cloud forms. right?
Hmm.
Now, on that day, there was only a very small corner where they met. On a day with a lot of clouds, the spread would be very close together for a very large area. It's really difficult. Um,
Hmm.
and
And the airplanes like to fly in this altitude, around 10,000 meters.
yeah, I mean, the chemtrails, or actually the condensation trails, they only form where these two curves touch.
Yeah.
And whenever you see condensation trails, you will always find in the altitude of the airplane exactly where that these two curves touch.
Hmm.
That is the actual reason for the condensation trails. And
Yeah.
now we can look at it from the side. What on that day happened was actually the passing of a warm front, right? Oops. So this whole graph moves in this direction. You can imagine that you're standing here. So I was standing here, and this warm front system was passing from that side over us, right? So the first clouds you always see are these very high, thin clouds, a very thin layer, then it becomes milky, more milky, and the clouds, they're coming down in these steps, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually exactly what happened on that day. Um, the Here the condensation contrails started to form, and then the cloud got thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, and at the end was raining. Now,
Yeah.
people that are standing here and believe in chemtrails think, oh, they were spreading and spraying stuff today, and
Hmm.
that's what caused all these clouds. And it's either weather modification, that's one of the interpretation of the chemtrails, or it's
Cloud
geoengineering,
seeding.
or it's cloud seeding.
Yeah.
And now we need to be very precise with the words. I think the,
Hmm.
the biggest confusion comes from linguistic problems.
Hmm.
Um, it's basically a cognitive bias, like confirmation bias. People that already believe in chemtrails, they're very open to accept anything they find on the internet as a confirmation. See, there is proof, there
Hmm.
is chemtrails.
Hmm.
And of course, when you look around, then at some point you will find cloud seeding. But cloud seeding has never been secret except for the very first few years where they actually did try to use it. But even when I was a kid, like 5 years old, I was looking through the books of my father. It was completely open since at least 50 years. They're doing this cloud seeding, and
Also like in the Vietnam War, they
that's
they
something
surely
else.
did it, or even earlier. You
That's
can you
something
can
else.
find.
Vietnam, I have actually a slide for that.
And I saw them in around 1977. The UN said, it's prohibited to use it as a warfare, as a war
Yes.
method.
Yes, international
Yeah,
organizations started to talk about it, and they came to agreement like we are not making war in Antarctica, we are not making war in space, and we are not
yeah,
using weather against each other, right?
yeah. It's
And I think,
because it's not just cloud seeding; it's also maybe hurricane seeding or
yeah,
creating a lot of rain, or maybe yeah. You can tell me maybe what's
yeah. I mean,
possible.
that was one of the initial ideas they had. The idea was if we could modify the weather actually and use cloud seeding to rain off the energy of a hurricane before it hits land, that would be
Hmm.
awesome. Right? Then you don't have any destruction, and that's cool. Or if we can't do that, at least maybe we could change the course of the hurricane. Um, but they stopped doing that very quickly because they were, first of all, they were not able to actually control it. You can influence it somewhat, but how it reacts exactly is very, very complex. So, and now you imagine you're in city A and the government steers the hurricane away from you. You're very happy. But if you're in the city B that is now hit by the hurricane, those people and the insurance companies will come to the government and say, hey, you destroyed our city. So you
Yeah,
pay. You took responsibility for that, so you're going to
yeah.
pay. And that's why
Have
this
you- yeah, please continue. Yes, and that's why.
that's why they stopped doing that. As
Yeah,
far as I can tell you, the United States don't do any weather modification anymore, as far as I can tell.
yeah. On a
Also,
grand scale, I just want to say, like last year, there was like a private company that did experiments with a weather balloon and trying to uh, put sulfur dioxide into the air and probably make it rain. And then afterwards, the Mexican government said, we are banning all experiments with geoengineering.
yeah, yeah,
So I think many, yeah, because it can really weather is so fundamental to the economics and it can really create a lot of damage. So I think
yeah.
all governments are really careful that
Yeah,
they are
and you
not
can't
being
control,
experimented on.
you can't 100% control the result of what you're doing, right? And the consequences.
Yes.
And I mean, if your country is too dry and you try to make it rain, maybe then you're stealing the water of another country, right? So it's
Hmm.
always a bit competitive or unfair competition. But
Yeah.
I know that in Dubai, they're using actively this cloud seeding and
In
they're
China, surely too. They also
China,
let it rain, no,
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
20
yeah.
years ago or so. I think it was also in the
Yeah,
papers.
yeah, I mean, on the 2012 Olympics or something like that, or 16, they actually used that because they wanted to present themselves in the best way possible. So they tried
Hmm.
to make the clouds rain off before it hit the big cities. So the weather looks nicer in China than it actually is without doing any influence. So this is actually happening, and I'm not debating that. It's completely open. There's nothing secret about it. But the mistake happens when people say cloud seeding is proof for chemtrails,
Hmm.
because that's
Because
not true. It is not.
chemtrails is more they're trying to poison us, they're trying to make us sick, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another hint that there's something wrong with this religion called chemtrails. They're
Hmm.
moving the goalpost, you know?
Yeah.
When I started looking into chemtrails, and in the beginning, honestly, I didn't know. I was actually thinking, oh, there could be something to it. They actually could try poison us. There, in that time, it was poisoning us.
Hmm.
And then it disappeared. And during the COVID time, it came up again. And then it was poisoning. And between it was geoengineering. And at the moment, it's geoengineering. So they're moving
Yeah.
the explanation for what it is. And that is a red flag from the get-go, right?
Or there are also people who say they're trying to take away the sun from us, the healthy sun rays that produce vitamin D. So that's also
Yes. Yes.
a theory that I think it's plausible. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, vitamin D is very, very healthy for us. And actually, they were taking D away from us by locking us inside, which
yeah.
was extremely stupid during the COVID time, right? People
Hmm.
should have gone to the beach and outside. That would have been the
Yeah.
best thing to improve your immune system.
Exactly, yeah.
So I
Okay,
agree.
let's come back to the weather. Let's not digress too much. So here you wanted to show us it's a normal, it's a natural process that it starts with these cirrus clouds, or sometimes it's the water vapor of the normal airliners, and it slowly becomes this milky cover and at the high stratus, and then it often starts raining.
Yes. I wanted to give a quick overview just to show people I did actually do my research and I did look into many, many different things you were talking about the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
That's called the Agent Orange stuff, right? They
Yes.
did actually do that. So they modified C-130 aircraft, as you can see here, and they were
To
spraying.
it's to defoliage, or how do you call it?
Exactly. Yeah. They were defoliating
To
the forests because
Yeah,
they couldn't see the Viet Cong.
yeah.
They were always under the tree cover. So they tried to create areas where the trees are all dead and you can see the ground. So the Viet Cong couldn't move.
Hmm.
Right?
But it
So
also created later birth defects, no, with
yes,
the
yes, it
people who
was
were
very
on the
toxic
ground.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really, really nasty stuff. And
Hmm.
it's not allowed to use anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
It was a dirty, dirty war, the
oh
Vietnam.
yes. Yeah, yeah. And it was
Hmm.
never to be won. It was to be an indefinite war, as most wars in the later years are. It's
So
a
Dow was involved. It was quick. Can you repeat again? Can you
no,
rewind?
unfortunately, the
Okay.
background just
But dioxin we saw, yeah, here
right.
the birth
I'll
defects.
post a link to this video. You can watch it.
Ah,
It's
okay.
very, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
good
Very
document
shocking.
and what happened from that. But you see, what I want to point out is all this spraying stuff. You need that to do that in very low altitude. What people don't understand is in the height of the airliners, 10 kilometers and above, it can take up to 20 years for particles to reach the ground.
Hmm.
So it's a very stupid and ineffective way to spray anything. Don't do that up there. It's very stupid.
Hmm.
And besides, the guys that, I mean, we do have people that have special interests and treat us not really nice. Um, but they wouldn't do anything that is putting themselves in danger. And by spraying the atmosphere, you do bad stuff to everybody. You can't escape that, right? It
Yeah.
will spread over the whole world.
Hmm.
So, no, it's a very dumb idea to do that. Then another one that happened last year in Florida, they were spraying against mosquitoes. That is
Hmm.
actually happening. But again,
Hmm.
it's a specially modified aircraft, and
They
it
were
doesn't,
spraying chemicals, or what were they
yeah,
spraying?
pesticides, yeah.
Okay.
And it was in this special area where they did that.
Hmm.
So it is true, yeah. Some stuff happens, but you see, it's not really a chemtrail.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think yeah, it's your presentation so far has really separated the chemtrails from the contrails, and the contrails really can produce rain. It can do like cloud seeding, and the chemtrails have no relationship really with rain producing technology.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, at least I've looked at thousands of uh, evidence for chemtrails. And as an airline
Hmm.
pilot and as a physicist, I have looked very, very closely at all of them, and I haven't found an actual chemtrail. For an actual if you would try to convince me there is an actual chemtrail, you would have to show me a chemtrail that happens in an area that has a big spread, right?
Hmm.
If you could show me a video and a printout from Flight Radar 24
Hmm.
and a printout of this emagram of the area, and you show me there's a big spread and a chemtrail, then I would start to look into it. And as long as you can't provide that, I'll say bullshit. It's not a chemtrail. It's just a
Yeah.
condensation trail.
Before this podcast, I looked at a Arte documentary where they also talked about geoengineering,
Mhm.
and it was about the idea of lowering the temperature by creating kind of like an umbrella, kind of a cover with sulfate aerosol, similar like the volcanoes did
Exactly.
in the past.
Yes.
That where so this also wouldn't create rain, but it would create I don't know how long it will last, but for a while it will create like a umbrella, and then the temperature would lower because you're like in the shade then.
Yes. They call that
Hmm.
a stratospheric aerosol injection.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
And that is true. They're thinking about that. And a volcano that we come to just in a second actually did
Hmm.
some of that. Or
Hmm.
any volcano eruption does inject aerosol into the stratosphere. Let me get out of the way so you can read that. And here you see the temperature. So you see the temperature is going up and down while going up, right?
Uh-huh.
And that is actually, you can think of it like the cover of a pan. The effect of the temperature inverting while going up, this has the effect like the cover on a pan to keep the steam and heat below it. So if you want to go through it, you need a lot of energy. So
It's because it's made out of different gases,
it's a natural sorting of the mixing of the different molecules of
and maybe also water may
water
also.
vapor and
Hmm.
fluorides and oxides and
Hmm.
ozone. So all
Yeah,
these molecules have different weights,
yeah.
and according to the weight, they're in a different layer. And um, in during the day, there's a lot of sunshine and turbulence, right? We have these clouds. The clouds have a lot of vertical force, and they start mixing stuff. And the very big cumulonimbus clouds, they can even go a little bit through the troposphere, and that's when these huge, beautiful clouds they form this thing on top. That's when they
Hmm.
actually managed to get through here. So
Hmm.
this amboss, we call it, that is when they manage to get through that. But usually weather only happens in the troposphere, right?
Yeah. But the ozone layer is also important so we don't get overheated on the ground. Not really?
Ozone layer is mostly responsible to filter out the hard UV light. It
Ah,
is
yeah.
UVA and UVB light is mostly filtered by the ozone layer.
And there was a panic like 30 years ago that there are holes in it because we use
Yeah.
the hair the
FCKW,
hairspray.
yes, this expansion gas in the bottles, in the spray bottles, right? And that was
Hmm.
actually true. It had some effect. It was when it climbed up, it was eating basically this ozone layer by forming even more complex connections. And so there started to be holes in this layer, and that was a
But
good thing.
they grew together again, I think, because no one is
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about them anymore. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Since we have forbidden to use it as a cooling agent in fridges and that stuff,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have grown back. So that was a good thing. That was
Hmm.
actually necessary and good that we did that.
Okay.
So now back to the stratospheric aerosol injection. As I said, weather only happens below here. And airliners happen only below the tropopause. We call the layer here tropopause. The
The
reason
airliners are below or inside the troposphere.
the the whole flying and the whole weather stuff happens in the troposphere, only in the lowest part.
Also the military airplanes.
Yes. The
Okay.
only planes that make it up there are rockets. And
Okay.
maybe very specialized, like a U-2 or so, they can go up there.
Hmm.
And maybe the military spy planes, right? Or the satellite.
Satellites, huh? Satellites are in the thermosphere or
They,
exosphere.
they're even above.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean the like let's do like that. The Starlink satellites from Elon Musk, they're around in that height.
Okay.
And he made it especially in that height that if they fail, they start to descend slowly and evaporate. So that is by design, because if you put it above that, they can stay in orbit forever.
Okay.
theoretically, or if they have collisions, it gets dangerous. So it's much safer to keep them down here, so they will destroy themselves if there's any problem, or if they run out of fuel.
Hmm.
So now this stratospheric aerosol injection, it would have to happen in this layer here, right? And so to claim that anything with chemtrails has something to do with that is just stupid, because chemtrails are always below. The reason for that
The
is
the contrails, not the chemtrails.
chemtrails. Well, yeah,
Or or if you do like in Vietnam,
as far as I'm
the
concerned,
Agent Orange.
yeah, there's something else. As far as I'm concerned, it's always condensation trails, CONtrails, and
Hmm.
not
Okay.
chemtrails. I haven't
Yeah.
seen an actual chemtrail in my life, other than the exceptions we discussed before, right? But they were all in low altitude. So the reason we don't fly into the stratosphere with airlines is this: the temperature starts to rise again. And for the efficiency of an aircraft, lower temperature is better. So it doesn't make sense to go higher because the efficiency decreases for an airliner, right? Reminds me of another thing. People claimed today they see more chemtrails than when they were children, which is true. The reason for that is um, the pressure cabin of airliners was not that great. They couldn't sustain such a high differential pressure because just the material science wasn't there. So we were flying around flight level 280 max divided by three. It's yeah, 9,000 meters, right? Now with the much better pressure cabins, we can fly much higher. And we can get very close now to the most efficient point, which is at the tropopause, which is like flight level 400. So that's 12 kilometers. And of course, up there, there's way less weather, way less turbulence. So the condensation trails, the contrails, they stay much longer up there, and the temperature is much lower. So they usually freeze and they can sustain much longer. That's the
There
reason.
there are not much turbulences or wind there.
Yeah. The
Hmm.
tropopause functions, as I said, like the pan on a cooker.
Yeah.
Right? Everything above that is very calm. If you fly up there, there are almost no turbulences. While down here, you have all the time, you have clouds and turbulences and hard
Hmm.
things. That's another reason we try to fly higher. And of course, there are way more airliners flying today than like just 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it was a luxury to fly. Today,
Hmm.
everybody flies for a weekend somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So the airspace is used way more dense, and alone from that, we needed to go higher to avoid congestion because you need a safety bubble around an airliner at all times, which is 5 miles or 8 kilometers in diameter, right?
Yeah.
You can stack them like 300 meters apart in pressure layers, but if they're on the same altitude, they need to separate by 8 kilometers or 5 miles. And now that's another thing that very often is brought up as a proof for chemtrails is when you see this chessboard uh, thing in the sky, right?
Yeah. Like a grid, I think you call it.
It's
Like
always the
yeah.
perfect grid, right?
Yeah.
That's very easy to explain. There can be two reasons. One reason is airways are being organized in parallels and usually
So
90
so
degrees.
so they don't collide.
So we don't fly into each other. And they're usually stacked in 500-meter steps or in 300, depends on in which altitude. And that, of course, immediately creates this chessboard pattern.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. Or you can imagine an airway over a point is fixed. And the airway will be always there. Now, if you have a strong wind, let's say there's an airway crossing, right, in one point in sky. That one is fixed to the ground, but the air masses, if you have a frontal system passing by, I mean, weather is usually moving in some direction. And now you imagine that has quite a high wind speed, and we have humidity in the air. So planes that fly along these airways leave a condensation trail. But if the air mass keeps moving over that point, the airplanes are stacked temporarily as well. So you imagine you have one, and now the condensation trail moves away. Now the next plane comes, the condensation trail moves away, next plane comes. And now you
Hmm.
have a very regular frequency because planes are stacked usually, let's say, in 5 minutes. And over time, this creates also this pattern,
Yeah.
right? So there are two possibilities how to create these patterns.
And the commercial air flights, airlines have increased in the past decades. Do you know
Yes.
how many airplanes are being fly around per day?
Oh, I haven't looked it up
At a documentary, it says it's maybe already 100,000 per day
already. Wow. Okay.
globally.
Yeah.
So probably it wasn't like that 30 years ago, 50 years
Not at
ago.
all.
There is more water vapor, maybe also CO2, you can say. Can you quickly summarize what's your opinion on the climate change? Is the globe really getting hotter and hotter, and the consequences will be disastrous, like a lot of floods, a lot of droughts, maybe people are fearing.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, your
So
research?
let's quickly destroy the climate alarmism religion.
Hmm.
The best evidence in quality and the longest in time we have are these Vostok ice core analysis. So they basically drill down in the Antarctica, down to the ground through all the ice layers. And these ice layers, you can imagine, they are like rings of trees, tree rings. So they store every season. You can see winter, summer, everything. So you can count exactly how old the ice core is. And you can measure the CO2 content and methane content. And
Hmm.
so everything is stored in this library.
Yeah.
So now when we graph this thing, it's cut off at the bottom. So I'll just tell you. The, the so uh, down here would be 400,000 years ago. And
Yeah.
then here would be today. Oops. This would
On the
be,
left side. Okay.
yes,
So the time axis is from right to left. Hmm.
the other way than usual. So let me
Yeah,
see.
it's okay.
This is
And the
today.
CO2 is on the top, dark blue, huh?
So you see, over the last 400,000 years,
Hmm.
the when we just connect the peaks, the
Ah, yeah.
CO2 has been less and less. And this is pretty dangerous. I think it's here, the ppm, CO2 ppm, yes.
It went down and up again, down and up again.
Very regular. You see,
Yeah.
if you
It
would see
seems
the
to be
scale, about every
cyclical,
100,
huh? There's a cycle going on.
exactly, about every 100,000 years,
Hmm.
you see the drops, right? Very regular.
Yeah.
And what people don't know about the CO2 parts per million, around 180 or 160 ppm, photosynthesis cannot operate anymore. Trees will die. So
Hmm.
we reach very, very closely this lower end where it's even possible to survive.
Hmm.
So it's actually a good thing that humans burn CO2 and release it back to the atmosphere. Because when you go back into the old stuff you dig up, you find there are much bigger trees, much bigger animals, and so on. And they lived back there where there was a lot of CO2 in the air.
Hmm. Wait, let's repeat this. So your theory is the more CO2, the more life?
Yes. CO2
Ooh,
is the gas of life. And you see,
especially we all learn it also, I think already in primary school. The plants need CO2, especially.
yes.
And
And
without plants, there are also no animals.
yeah. In Holland, where they're growing tomatoes and they have these closed glass greenhouses,
Yeah.
they actually pump in CO2 for all the stuff to grow faster and taller. So
Okay.
we are coming out of a CO2 starvation phase. And it's true, humans have burned a lot of CO2,
Or
fossil fuels,
gas and fossil fuel. Yeah.
gas,
Hmm.
everything. And we have pretty much doubled it from 200 ppms to 400 ppms right now, right? So that is true. But as we see, the peaks of the temperature curves is completely flat. So if it were true that CO2 is steering the climate, especially the temperature, that one would be up here too. And it isn't.
Hmm.
So that is total bullshit what they're trying to tell us.
It
They're,
it almost looks very stable there,
it
but
is
it's
extremely stable.
peaking at a very long time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So the actual reason, which is directly responsible for these curves, are the Milankovitch cycles. So this is a little simulator where you can play around with all these effects that are interfering with each other, and they all combined are called the Milankovitch cycles. He's a Serbian mathematician that figured that out, and best I show what happens, right? I can switch down here, and I suggest that everybody goes and plays around with that because it's very interesting to learn how that actually happens. So I switch to top view. And here on the right, we can show things like eccentricity. And you see this kind of sine wave or the wave that it generates. I can show precession alone and combined with eccentricity. And I can show tilt, which is very regular. So all these curves that happen, maybe I show all of them combined. And then you can slide in the past. And now I stop the rotation and orbit a bit slower. Season lock. So now I can move here the slider up and down, and you see what happens with the Earth. So the same season starts to move around the Earth. So spring is not always in the same direction of the sun. That moves around.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe the oblique view is a bit easier to understand. Season log.
So you're still explaining the climate change, or you want to disprove the climate change theories?
Yes. The reason are these Milankovitch cycles. And I'll just now show
Hmm.
you in the top view when I'm
And
moving
one cycle is how many years?
100,000 years approximately. Yeah.
Okay.
You see now I can move the years back, and you see how the Earth is tilting during its way around the sun, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's a tilt going on, and there is I can show you the rotation as well. I move it a bit faster. Now you see
Yeah.
that the Earth, the orbit around the sun is wobbling like an egg, right? It's not a perfect
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah.
So that is overlaying with all the other things. And now you can look here on the right where you see the sum of all these oscillations that are combining together. And I
Yeah.
overlaid with the Vostok core. And you see
Okay.
it is following very closely these orbits.
Yeah.
So all these effects of the Earth's orbit around the sun, the tilt change and the rotation, and all these curves are summing up and dividing and so on. That is what steers the climate, and only that.
Yeah.
Effect of CO2 is below 0.15%. So it's nothing.
of the effect of
The
the
whole the
whole
whole
effect. Yeah.
climate effect, it's less than
Yeah.
0.15%.
Okay.
Yes.
So either the UN and all their climate policies are lying or they're stupid. It's always the same question also with Corona. Are they really that stupid? And they always want to just repeat it's man-made, man-made. Please
Yeah.
change your behavior, or they're just
Yes.
stupid and they just believe everything they read in the textbooks.
Mm. To understand what happened there, I can suggest an awesome documentary that
Ah, yeah.
Corbett made, and
Hmm.
they're called "Why Big Oil Conquered the World and How Big Oil Conquered the World." They're both 2 hours and totally worth it if you want to understand the whole story, the historical background of this climate alarmism scare.
Yeah. And it started, I think in the 70s for sure, maybe earlier, huh? With the
Yeah, I think even
what's
earlier.
the one big think tank, the Rome, no?
Yes,
What's
Club of
something
Rome.
Rome?
Club of
Club of
Rome.
Rome, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. They were very
Well, let's
important.
go there quickly. If
Okay.
you track back all this climate alarmism stuff, you're always ending up at the Rockefeller Foundation or the
Yeah.
Rockefeller dynasty. Everything starts with them. It's WWF, Greenpeace, Club of Rome, IPCC, that's the International Panel on Climate Change. They have all been financed and initiated by the Rockefeller Foundation or their money.
Yeah.
One of the first think tanks of those is the Club of Rome. All
Yeah.
this ideological and humanity hating ideology is coming out of that think tank.
Hmm.
And just to quickly explain why they did the climate alarmism scare is they want to grab the control over the world. They're really into the business of we want to control the world. That's
It's very closely connected to the one world government that they're
yes,
working on
yes,
with not only the UN but also Klaus Schwab in Davos with his
yes. I mean, basically,
WEF club. And
UN
with
agenda
Corona, there
20,
they also I think were maybe not totally successful, but they increased the digitalization, the COVID digital passports. So
dangerously.
it was probably for them a quite successful test run, and we'll see what comes next.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I mean, the UN Agenda 21, the goals they defined for UN Agenda 21, they have been exactly achieved by the lockdowns
Hmm.
for COVID.
Yeah,
Not an accident, in my opinion. And now you just need to read their papers. I mean, they're completely open. They're not hiding anything. You just need to read it. People don't read.
yeah,
Read UN Agenda 2030 and UN Agenda 2050, the goals.
yeah.
Goal for UN Agenda 2050 is zero carbon. Zero carbon means zero human life. They want to get rid of us. That's you can't.
They also call it CO2 neutral. It's kind of
Yeah.
like neutralized.
Yes.
We don't kill life, we just neutralize it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
This euphemisms, you know.
they all need, but they're actually doing, they're weaponizing human empathy against the human.
Mm,
They're using
exactly.
their empathy against them. It's very,
Yeah.
very nasty. Yeah.
Also with the push of robotics, I don't know your opinion of Tesla and Elon Musk. He seems to be a little bit of a like a renegade, a rebel type. Also Trump, but I think they're all basically still in the same elite club. And
I think Elon
yeah,
is outside of that club. But
you think?
he's
Hmm.
the only one that is able to play in on that level.
Hmm.
So
He can really fight for free speech that he has proven in the last year. Yeah.
yes. And I mean, he was warning about AI and the dangers of AI for 20 years now, and they didn't
Hmm.
listen. So he said, "Okay, I tried to warn you, and you didn't listen. So now I need to change my strategy. I need to go to the second best solution, which is if we can't avoid the rise of AI, then at least we need to give very democratic access to everybody to use it."
Yeah. And
And
he also
that's
wants to connect the human brain with the AI so that at least we are also
Neuralink.
getting intelligent together with the
Yes.
AI. So let's
It's basically thinking like
slowly.
a small brain, our cognitive frontal lobe brain, which is
Yeah.
much more able to think strategically, right?
Hmm.
And the Neuralink would be then the next extension that every human, if they want to, can have
Hmm.
access to an AI, which would increase our bandwidth dramatically. I mean, he said we are basically locked in this body. We can type, and that's the maximum, or speak, right? That's the maximum
Yeah.
we have to the world. At least the eyes are very good. We have gigabit of bandwidth into the brain.
Hmm.
That's why I like YouTube. I can learn a lot of stuff very quickly, very fast, which would take 10 times as much time than reading books, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
everyone should have the human right to access all this knowledge in the cloud, in the collective history of knowledge, basically. Yeah.
His point was that the most dangerous situation that can happen is that AI gets under control of nefarious players like, let's say, China or the Rockefeller Foundation and these guys. Or
Yeah. Of a
people,
small group of gangsters. Yeah.
yes, which don't have the good for humanity in their view, but the good for themselves. Which
Good.
so in my eyes, and I'm still skeptical and have a very close eye on Elon and what he's doing. But as far as I can tell, he's the only one that is fighting back against this UN agenda and globalist, communist, totalitarian mafia.
Yeah. He hasn't been in Davos, I think, also for the last decade at least.
He got invited and he joined. I mean, he
Mm.
didn't know. He just joined and looked what happens. He said, "Well, it was boring."
That's true.
I think the WEF is not that important as people think.
Anymore. Yeah, yeah. I
It
also
is,
think so, yeah.
it is what happens behind the scenes when people meet in private. That's where
Hmm.
the interesting stuff happens, when they discuss policies and how they want to achieve things and so behind the closed doors. But let me
Okay,
finish the
please
CO2,
finish.
the
Mhm.
CO2, that is
Yes.
because why are they putting CO2 as the master of the climate? Why they're doing that? And there's a very strategic thinking behind that. Um, think about this. What did they do with the CO2 trading? CO2 trading doesn't save a single gram of CO2 being emitted. CO2 trading takes CO2 from highly developed, formerly well organized and working Western democracies and moves it to totalitarian regimes like China. Just look at the data. Don't listen to what people say. Look what actually happens. Look at the data. The, the CO2 trade is a communist redistribution from democracies to totalitarian systems. That's what's actually happening. And that's the reasoning behind the whole thing.
And it's also one of the WEF goals, not just be poor and happy, but also make the US less powerful and distribute it to the BRIC countries, China, Russia, etc. Yeah. Brazil is also important.
Because CO2 is equivalent to energy still today.
Hmm.
All these new technologies, solar panels, it's a fraction, 5–10%. So if you want to reduce all the CO2 energy, um, you have to reduce the wealth and well-being of the people in Western democracies.
Hmm.
So telling people that this is a good thing for them is just a lie. It's not true.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
again this gaslighting.
Yes. And I'm a fan of all the products that Elon Musk does, all the electric cars. That's as soon as I can afford,
Neuralink
I'm gonna
and
have.
the
Yeah,
Starlink,
I,
internet for everyone.
we're communicating right now via Starlink. I'm
Hmm.
using all these things, and I'm a big fan of what Elon is doing. Yeah, yeah.
Please make some conclusion about what we talked about, weather modification, chemtrails, contrails, so on? Do you have more slides you quickly want to
Oh,
show?
yes, actually,
Try to wrap it up in about 10 minutes or so if
yeah,
possible.
that's easy.
Okay.
We need to talk about what is behind the present rainfall that is happening. And that is true at the moment, also in Switzerland, latest from 2023, already starting 2022, we had way more rainfall than usual during the summer. That is absolutely true. And the reason for that is neither climate change, nor chemtrails, nor geoengineering. It is this guy here. We are a bit west of Australia, and that was in January 22, where this volcano exploded out in the water. It was an underwater volcano. And as you can see, this is a satellite picture. This was huge. This volcano exploded with the power of a huge hydrogen bomb. So one of the
Yeah.
biggest bombs we ever exploded, that was the power of this volcano explosion.
Hmm.
Um, I'll go now to
It
the
was bigger than the one in Iceland. There was one in Iceland. Do you
this
remember?
was way bigger, and
Yeah.
the important thing was um, it was. Let's get that again. It was underwater. So what it did, it exploded. Don't take my hand away. It exploded underwater and it put so much water into the stratosphere and troposphere that the global humidity increased by 10%.
Mm.
That's amazing high number. So, and now when you have way higher humidity in the whole of the troposphere and up even into the stratosphere, um, that water is coming down over the next 10, 20 years. So
Mhm.
at the moment, we have a surplus of energy in the atmosphere.
Humidity that naturally with also with the change of seasons, with the cooling down of the weather, it also produces rain, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Now we are coming to the conclusion of this climate alarmism. The funny thing is, and I can demonstrate you how you're a victim of propaganda, because this greenhouse effect, without looking it up, which effect do you think, or which gas has the biggest part in greenhouse effect, and how many percent it is of the greenhouse effect? All
No
these
gas.
answers are wrong.
Yeah.
But you see, all these gases combined, they are just 20% of
Hmm.
greenhouse gas effect. So to resolve the puzzle, what is actually mostly responsible for the greenhouse effect, it is water vapor.
Mm.
80% is water vapor. And
Yeah.
the fact that after like 40 years of indoctrination in school and news and books and stuff about climate alarmism, the fact that you don't know that 80% of the greenhouse effect is water vapor is proof that you're a victim of propaganda. Water can absorb extreme amount of energy. And
Hmm.
that's what happens with this Hunga-Tonga explosion. I'll put it up in the background again. With this additional water vapor we have now in the atmosphere, the energy that the atmosphere can store is greatly increased
Yeah.
because the water vapor has a lot of degrees of freedom to oscillate. You know, what is heat in the atmosphere? It is rotation of the molecules. So the faster they rotate, they store more energy, or like this attraction motion, you know, how the molecule or the atoms within the molecule move against each other, that can store energy. And the amount of energy the CO2 can store is very, very small. And here I have the
The
graph.
water vapor, yeah. Here
That
you
is the
see at
water
the top.
vapor. That's the spectrum of energy water vapor can absorb, and it is combined. So, and the top row is all these effects combined down here.
Hmm.
Nitrogen, methane, oxygen, and ozone, and carbon dioxide, you see? And
Yeah.
the only important spectrum carbon dioxide can absorb is this little peak here, which is that peak here. That's all carbon dioxide can do.
Okay.
Now, something that most people don't understand as well. Yes, we doubled from 200 ppm parts per million to 400 parts per million. But as you can see here, 400 ppm already absorbs 100% of the energy that arrives in that spectra. That means we could double the amount of CO2 and it can't absorb more than 100%. That means the CO2 molecules in the lower part of the atmosphere are already in the shadow of the CO2 particles in the higher atmosphere, right?
Hmm.
But they are in the shadow. More CO2 can't absorb more energy from the sun. Impossible.
Hmm. Yeah.
So even if you would double the ppm to 800, nothing would change. It's the
Okay. We don't need to worry. We don't need to get alarmed. But can you come to a conclusion?
Yes, we all want clean air. We all want clean water. We
Water.
want clean earth. So it does actually make sense to move away from dirty technologies and
Hmm.
towards electric power. I think
Hmm. Also, atomic energy, nuclear energy.
yes,
If with the modern technology, not near the ocean where it can get like
you
with
can
Fukushima.
exactly you
Hmm.
can create today atomic power plants that are fail safe and
Yeah,
not.
near a river probably is better than near the ocean.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just make something that if the elements, the radioactive elements, if anything happens, if
Hmm.
energy is cut from the power plant, that it
Hmm.
falls down and automatically slides down away from each other. Then you
Okay.
all automatically don't have the closeness that is required to keep the process running.
Hmm.
So if for any reason energy is cut or there is no cooling, it would automatically fall apart and stop the radioactive process.
Good. Yeah.
We can build a power plant easily today that is safe. And
Okay.
even Elon Musk said, we need more good atomic power plants. We are not
Okay.
fast enough building out solar
Yeah.
panels
I
to
think China is building them. Only Germany and the US
no,
are in this green craze mode, in this green alarmism.
yes,
So what else would you like to say at the end? Don't panic. It's not
yes.
all chemicals being sprayed above us.
Climate alarmism is fifth generation warfare, psychological warfare against Western civilizations. That's what's
Mhm.
actually happening.